I'm Rob,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome to another edition of Let's Get Ethical.
All right.
All
Welcome
right,
back in, everybody. Another edition. Rob, what do we got today?
Mike, we have got, I think, what is going to be a really talked about episode of Let's Get Ethical.
I think so too.
This is a rare case where clinical failure, it's brutally simple. A bedside suction machine never switched on, but the ethics underneath, it's not. Scope of practice, the duty to rescue, moral distress, the bystander problem, and institutional rot all
Yep.
collide in a single 8-hour shift.
Yep. The equipment was working. The staff was there. They were
Yep.
trained.
Yep.
The need was obvious, but a patient died.
Yes. The patient died.
So what in the world happened?
What happened?
So the patient that we're talking about, we're going to use his first name.
I like that.
Patient's name was Pete. Rob, tell us about this patient really quick.
So Pete was an 87-year-old. He was an Army veteran. He was a veteran of the Korean War. He spent his adult life. He was a farmer. He was a business owner. He was a husband. He was a farmer. He had to receive a tracheostomy, and he was living in a long-term care facility. And it was well known that he required frequent suctioning, and it's sometimes his trach obstructed. And for this reason, a suction machine was always kept at his bedside.
Yep. And he was being taken care of by an LPN. Her name was Betty Sue Manning. And should we name the facility? They're the company that she
Yeah,
works. I don't
sure.
know if we need
I think
to.
we should.
This was in Pocahontas County, Iowa, at the Fonda Specialty Care Center. And she was responsible for Pete that night.
Yes.
And despite the CNA's more than 10 requests to suction him, he never got suctioned.
10 requests.
10 requests. And the CNAs said after the fact that they had documented the need, but the patient for some reason didn't get suctioned. Now, this went all the way. This actually happened in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And all the court case and all the proceedings and the charge, and we'll get to that in a second, happened in 2024. The case was settled. The criminal case was settled in 2025. And then there was a wrongful death case, a civil case that was dismissed in 2026. There are no details on that case that we were able to find.
It was dismissed to arbitration, and that's
arbitration.
all we know from
So
that.
so that keeps us from being able to find any information on it. But Betty Sue Manning was charged with wanton neglect, felony wanton neglect. And there's some stuff that we have to kind of break down here, right? We all know what neglect is. We're aware of neglect. But what does the word wanton mean? Rob, do you know?
You know, Mike, I have some ideas, but I'd really love to hear what the word wanton means in this specific situation.
So basically, when we talk about neglect in a court setting, we have neglect, which is the lowest level. Neglect means you failed to do what you were supposed to do, right? That's really what neglect means by itself. And then there's different levels of neglect, right? So neglect is you failed to exercise appropriately, failed to do your stuff. Wanton neglect means there was a disregard of a known procedure or disregarding of a known process that put the patient at serious risk. Now, what that means is I knew something needed to be done. I'm qualified to do it, yet I chose not to do it. That's what it means. It doesn't mean I missed it. Neglect is I should have known I missed it, and that's neglectful because we're not supposed to do that. Wanton neglect means that I knew, I had been told 10 times, in fact, according to the
Mhm.
CNAs.
Mhm.
Yet, for whatever reason, I still did not take action. So she was charged with felony wanton neglect as a result of this case.
So, Mike, in this case,
Mhm.
Miss Manning was a licensed practical nurse in the state of Iowa.
That's correct.
Was it within her scope of practice to suction a patient's artificial airway? Was
I
that
believe
in her scope of practice?
I believe it was. It was, and she should have been trained to do it. Now, you bring up an interesting point, because there's no direct quote from Miss Manning, but there was a statement in one of the articles that I read that she was told she wouldn't have to suction the patient. And when she
Mhm.
was told she needed to suction the patient, or that this patient was going to need suctioning, that she mentioned that she didn't know how to do it. And you know what she was told?
What was she told?
According to the article that I read,
Yeah. Yes.
you know what I'm going to say it, but you're
Spit
pretend
it
you
out,
don't know.
baby. Spit it out.
She was told to watch a video.
Yep.
She was told
Watch.
basically to YouTube it.
Yep. Watch a video if you don't know how
Mhm.
to do it. But she was also told something else. What else was she told before she started her shift about Pete and his tracheostomy? What was she told?
And she was told that he didn't require it.
She wouldn't have to do anything with
Right.
it.
Now,
Despite the fact, yes, go ahead.
it's important to clarify here that there's no direct state. These are from the news, different news articles and research.
That's
She
correct.
states that she was told that. They state something different. So we kind of go back and forth here. So you have to kind of take that for what it's worth, in this whole process.
Now, if I remember reading, Mike, because you and I read the same bit of information,
Mhm.
this nurse, Miss Manning, she entered into what's called an Alford plea agreement.
Yes,
I was hoping that you could explain a little bit more to me and our Let's Get Ethical audience. What is an Alford plea, and what does that mean to her and her practice?
absolutely. So an Alford plea is when Alford plea. I'm saying it wrong. An Alford plea is when somebody is basically stating that I didn't do this, yet the prosecution has enough to convict me. Now
Okay,
that's a really weird thing for us to think about, right? It's weird to
right.
think that I didn't do it, but I know that it looks like I did. Um, and in some cases, I remember there's one case, and we won't talk about it. There's one case, it's the West Memphis Three. I don't know if you've heard of them. They were convicted of killing a kid, and they went to prison for years. And they were able to get out by the judge reopened it. The new evidence was brought to life, and they did an Alford plea, and they got out. And a lot of people support them. But
Okay.
basically, what an Alford plea says is it says I'm going to maintain my innocence, um, but and not plead guilty, but I'm also not going to plead no contest. I'm going to admit that I could be convicted of this, um, but I'm stating I didn't do it. That's what an Alford plea is. And the problem with an Alford plea, especially in a case like this, is it leaves a lot of stuff unresolved. It leaves a
Mhm.
lot of information, just up for kind of up for grabs, right? So it allows us. Let me find this really quick. Um, um,
So does the Alford plea not require Miss Manning to come forward and really say what happened?
correct. It allows her to
Oh,
maintain her innocence is the thing.
okay.
It
Okay.
allows her to maintain that I'm not responsible for this. Yet it allows the court to convict. It's still a convictable plea, right? Just like a
Yes.
no
Yep.
contest or nolo contendere would be. It's a convictable plea, but it's the defendant maintaining their innocence during the plea process. So
Okay.
it's essentially saying I didn't do this, but okay, let's go to prison.
Yeah,
Which
and
is a
she
weird
was
thing.
sentenced to 2 years in prison and an $855 fine.
Correct. And her charge was actually reduced. Her charge was dropped from a felony wanton neglect to a misdemeanor wanton neglect, which changes. And this is all part of the prosecutor's agreement with the defense with regards to that. But where it gets fuzzy really is
Mm,
when you start to say, okay, well, as part of her agreement, as part of that Alford plea, her license was suspended indefinitely. And you might ask, why not revoked? Because that's what I asked.
it's a
Why
great
wouldn't they
question.
revoke it?
Okay.
Um, and
What's your thought?
from everything that I looked up, it's revoked or it's suspended indefinitely. And let's put that in quotes, right? Indefinite leaves the door open, which is a scary thought if you're a patient or if you're in healthcare, right? That's a scary thought for me. You're going to leave it open that she could get her license back. So it looks better on her, is what it is. However, from everything I've read, there's really, she's probably not going to get her license back.
Yeah,
It keeps her
thank God.
from, yeah, it keeps the revocation from being the statement. Her license isn't, in this case, revoked. She agreed with the licensing board that it would be suspended indefinitely. But it doesn't give us any more than that. That's what an Alford plea does. It doesn't
Yeah,
allow us to really dig in and figure all that stuff out, right? But
but
so let's talk about what
there
happened though.
yeah, I wanna talk about what happened because I feel at this point our audience is kinda like, well, we're hearing all this great information and we're learning about an Alford
Mhm.
plea and we're learning that she doesn't have a license anymore. But what actually happened and how does a licensed professional, a nurse,
Yeah.
not be comfortable? I can understand if you're not comfortable suctioning a trach, but you went into this assignment knowing that this patient had an artificial airway. You were told by your administrator to figure it out, watch a video while that administrator left the building. And from what you and I have both read in Iowa newspapers, and we've watched the news clips on TV, so I want to make clear to our
Mhm.
audience, we're not making this up.
Right.
This is stuff we've actually taken the time to research. Was it during this 8-hour night shift, the patient was complaining of difficulty clearing his airway. The nursing assistants were at his bedside. They called her multiple times to come in. He was pointing to his neck. One of the CNAs said she watched him go from pale to purple to blue. The nurse came in and checked the patient's blood pressure, declared he was having a heart attack.
I love that.
I
I that's just
Yeah, so,
that
like, I
blows
don't
my mind.
understand how you ignored what was right in front of your face and what the CNAs who obviously worked in this facility all the time, were very familiar with Pete, knew what his
Right.
request and his needs were, and those what I would consider simple needs were
Mhm.
completely ignored. And then when the CNAs said, "We wanna dial 911, let's get somebody here to help the patient," the nurse said, "Oh, no, no, we can't do that. There's no overnight provider to request a hospital evaluation?"
Yeah. Now, a couple things. Um, I'm
Help me.
sure
Help
I'm
me.
well, no, I'm sure that someone somewhere listening right now during the beginning of what Rob just said timeout. Why was she allowed to stay if she told the administrator she
Ah,
didn't know how to perform suctioning? Why would the administrator not figure that out before? And that's a question I have that I
I
couldn't find an answer to.
ditto.
I looked at that and the first thing I thought was, why did the administrator go home? Why
Yep.
that's if I am and let's bring this back to respiratory. Rob, you're a department director. If
Yes.
somebody doesn't know how to do something that a patient requires to have done, I'm not sure if that was grammatically correct, but we're going to go with it. Um,
Go with it.
are you going to simply say, I'm out of here, peace, watch a video, see you tomorrow?
Not in a million years because if something happens, I'm culpable now. I'm just as
100%.
guilty, just as guilty, right?
100%. And
For
let's go back.
wanton neglect.
Yeah, and let's go back to just for just a moment to the statement that um we're getting on this nurse, and we should We absolutely should. But let's
Hmm.
go back to what you said in the very beginning of this podcast. You said it about 14 minutes ago. The system broke.
Yes, it was very
This is
broken.
part of that systematic breakdown.
Yes.
I'd like to know why that happened. I'd like to know why
Yep.
that I don't know who that administrator is. I didn't find a name, or I would
Nope.
name that person, because my God, what are you doing? And that's a legitimate question I think we all have.
Yep.
Is this on the nurse? Yes. Is this only on the nurse? No.
No, and
And that's
I
the
agree with
problem.
that statement. It's a systems, it's a broken system. It's
100%.
not just her failure, and unfortunately, she really took the brunt of the blame. But if you really peel it back and you open it up, it's absolutely a system failure.
Yeah, and that's a problem. And
Hmm.
why, and there's this whole episode is going to be whys. Why, questions of why. Why didn't, when the CNAs noticed that, because I'll put this back on them a little bit, when they noticed the patient needed to be suctioned and they requested 10 times for this nurse to suction, for this LPN to suction, and why didn't they find somebody else and say, hey, look, she's not suctioning. Patient needs to be suctioning. Will you help me? Will you help this patient? We all, as a team, have a responsibility to these patients, right?
Yes, yes, taking care of a patient, and we talk about this a lot. It's a team approach. I
Yes,
guess my question would be, and we don't really know the answer to this, was Ms. Manning the only nurse in that facility overnight?
that's a great question, and we don't have the
And
answer
we
to
don't
that.
know the answer to that question. But what we do know is that when a request was made by the CNAs to dial 911, they were told no. And that doesn't sit well with me, because why would you not, like, for example, there's no doctor in a 911 system, right? Like, if you're dialing 911
Right.
and you're asking for paramedics to come to the facility because this is what's happening to the patient, it doesn't require a physician to be involved at that time. I guess, my question too, Mike, is if you were the CNA caring for that patient, my big question is, would you have gone outside of your whatever and said, "No, I'm calling 911. I'm going to get somebody here to help us take care of this patient."
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. The answer is yes. Yes. 100%. And I
100%.
just did a quick search through the stuff that I have, and she acknowledged that her coworkers had each told her that Pete needed to be suctioned,
Mhm.
um, and that he was mouthing, he couldn't breathe. She acknowledged that, right?
Yes.
Yet she said it never occurred to her to suction his airway. I don't know what we're doing, guys.
I
I'm getting angry as I'm reading this again, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then the prosecutors also alleged that no fewer than 4 workers were asked to suction him, and that she prevented the staff from calling 911 when it became apparent that he couldn't breathe. Now, first of
Mm.
all right, I'm going to say it this way. How
Go ahead,
weak
buddy.
are you that somebody can prevent you from picking up a phone? I don't understand that.
I
And that's a slight to everybody that was, quote, prevented. If a patient needs help, you can't keep me from helping them. You can't do that.
so yeah.
You might say, well, scope of practice, I can't intubate here at this facility. This is a phone call to 911.
S So, Mike, does that fall on, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Duty to rescue versus scope as some sort of a shield. What are your thoughts on
Absolutely.
that?
100%. 100%. This
Yeah.
goes, this is outside a scope of practice issue, in my opinion. Right.
Okay.
And these are, everybody, our opinions, right? This is just how I feel. This is outside a scope of practice issue. Calling 911 in a facility like this, that's not a scope of practice thing. If I know a
Bingo.
patient needs help and I have to go outside of my scope to help them and I'm not comfortable with that, that's one thing. but I believe anybody can call 911. Is there a procedural thing there, a policy and procedure in place that says how that's supposed to go? Sure. But
Fair.
when that person doesn't follow policy and procedure still needs to be followed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about who should do it, it's about what should happen.
Let me keep. I want to keep going down the duty to
Sure.
rescue versus scope, and I'm gonna repeat something because this was Manning's defense. This was Ms. Manning's defense, in essence. Well, I was told I wouldn't have to touch the trach,
That's insane.
right? So, can an onboarding instruction ever discharge the clinician's duty to a dying patient in front of them?
No,
Does it?
no,
Right?
no.
What is the difference between role, contract expectations versus the delegable duty of beneficence and the basic duty to rescue someone in need?
Right.
That's like
No,
the pillar of ethics
yeah,
right
it's
there,
the core of what we do,
right?
right?
The core.
Yeah. It's the foundation on which everything else is built.
Yes.
Where's the compassion?
Yes.
Where's the non-maleficence? Where's the beneficence? Where's the justice? Right? Where is
Yep.
all of that in this
Yes.
situation? Right? That's
S-
not my assignment. That's not
Right.
what
Yes.
I was
Right.
told. I don't have to do that.
That's not my assignment. Is that a defense? Is that a defense
Never.
when you are witnessing a patient dying in front of you? You are a licensed healthcare practitioner,
Well, let me
and
ask you a
you're
question.
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Let's take it to the hospital, right? Because
Yeah.
it kind of the not my assignment. So you're assigned to ICU. I'm assigned to fourth floor. We have a code on fourth floor, but fourth floor is not your assignment. Do you not respond to the code?
No, of course I respond. Of course I respond to the code, right? It's no different than if you're in the department and the phone rings and you pick it up and it's the second floor, right? Oh, hey, we need you stat in room
Right.
so and so. Am I just going to be like, can you please page the RT that's got that? That's not my problem.
How many times does that statement get said, though?
Probably more than we really want to admit here on our podcast,
Absolutely.
Let's Get Ethical, but we know that it happens,
Yeah, it does. It sure
right?
does.
Okay. Does the bystander have any culpability in this?
Bystander regarding the
The
CNAs?
CNA. So the
Yes.
CNAs as bystanders, they asked 10, according to them, 10 plus times, please
Right.
suction Pete's trach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the failure, does the failure comprise the entire group of staffing or just that nurse? Because we talked about it's a failure of the system. And are the CNAs in this case part of that failure of the bigger system?
I believe they are.
Why would you be
I believe
so
they are.
afraid to pick up a phone? Like, what are you so afraid of?
Yeah.
Are you afraid of losing your job because you knew the right thing to do was to call 911? Fire me.
Well, you want to. So there was a whistleblower case attached to this too,
Yes, there was.
where someone was fired for speaking up about these types of practices,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, something else. I'm gonna have to find it, but
Mike,
one
as
of the
you're looking
headlines
at it,
called
go
this
ahead.
a death care facility,
Yeah,
not a healthcare facility.
yeah, yeah.
And while that's cold,
Yep.
I get it.
Is there ever let me I have there's like 1,000 questions in this episode coming into
Totally.
my mind, right? Because you and I are like, this is like the biggest onion I've ever seen, and we're like peeling this thing back like
Right.
crazy.
Right.
Is there ever a just ethical exit for a subordinate who is right? Do you know what I mean by that sentence?
No, say that again.
So if the CNA says they can't suction the patient, but and they can't reach somebody who can, and they're told not to call 911, but they know that's the right thing to do. Do they now have an ethical exit ramp to say, that wasn't my responsibility?
I don't think so. See, that wasn't my responsibility part makes me
Yep.
say no.
I agree, and I agree with that.
Because it's all our responsibility, isn't
Yep.
it? I mean, it
Yes.
absolutely is. So the whistleblower case was a former CNA who stated that she was fired as a result, right? So this
Mhm.
is, should we name her? Let's name her. Tylene Schultz. I'm gonna say it.
Yep.
She
Yep.
sued this facility for wrongful termination and Manning for wrongful
Mhm.
termination. Based off her account, um, she alleged that despite requesting suctioning 10 times between 6 p.m. and 2:25 a.m.,
Yeah.
guys,
Yep.
that's
Yes.
8 hours.
Yes. 8 hours, correct.
8 hours, 10 times over 8 hours. That's well over an hour. One time, repeatedly doing that. Manning would not suction the resident or attempt to use the suction machine. Schultz said she tried to call supervisory staff, but no one answered.
Yep.
And when she asked someone to call 911, Manning told her no physician was available at that hour to order a hospital evaluation
I keep going back to that, going, what does 911 have to do with a
with,
hospital evaluation?
and a
Nothing.
physician.
Nothing.
Nothing at all,
Nothing.
right?
Nothing.
Just double checking, just double checking, make sure I'm not missing something.
And at
You
the end
know?
of this, whole thing, what Schultz said, what she was told to do after she reported this incident, Mike? What was she told to do?
Oh, I was just reading that.
Yeah.
Um,
What was she told?
after the shift, the home's administrator at the time, I'm gonna name this lady too. Sorry,
Name
Jennifer.
them.
Jennifer Blair told her to quote, keep your mouth shut and keep your opinions to yourself.
Yep. And then what happened?
That's
And then
according
what
to
happened to
Schultz.
her? Then
That's
she was
according to
fired.
Schultz. Yeah,
Yep.
and she was told to not communicate with the family, and later that day she was fired.
So at this point, this leads me to a great question, because let me ask you a question. Was moral injury, let me rephrase that. Hold on. Did moral injury now occur to Tylene Schultz?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
Right?
Moral injury occurs anytime someone needs help and you want to help, but you are
Yes.
prevented from helping, right?
Yeah. And it's not a new term. I think we've had this conversation before.
We have.
Moral distress was actually termed, I'm going to give a little history lesson for a second, everybody.
Do it.
1984 by Jameson, right? And what moral injury says is it's knowing the ethically appropriate action to take, but being prevented from doing so by external constraints. For example, organizational policies, legal limitations, or resource shortages. But wait a minute. Did we have a resource shortage? No. We
Think
had a
we did.
nurse at the bedside.
We had a CNA.
We had a CNA at the bedside. We had the means. It wasn't like there wasn't a suction machine
And we
in the
always had
patient's
911
room.
at a phone call's distance.
A phone call away. We
Yep.
could have had EMS, paramedics, etc., come to the facility who could have helped take care of this patient, this person, right? This human being. He's not a prop. I want to make that clear. This is a
100%.
person, a farmer, a veteran, a husband, a dad
Yep.
who lost his life needlessly.
And what's more, right? And we should stop for just a moment and explain that Betty Sue Manning was a temp agency nurse.
Yes, she was.
She was a temp agency nurse. We've all had registry called in or a temp agency called in to cover a shift. But she was still, as unfamiliar as she might have been with
Mhm.
everything that might have been going on, or policy and procedure, she still should have been trained and should have been able to be responsible for
Yep.
the aspects of care for which her scope allows her, right? She should have been.
Competence.
Yeah,
Competence.
she should have been 100%. And
Yep.
I'll go one step further again, and I'll draw it back to, it's real easy to say, Betty Sue Manning, you're a horrible person. It's real easy to say one nurse, bad person, right? But it's
Yep.
more than that.
Yep.
It's way more than that. It's
Oh,
this institution reportedly had dozens, more than dozens of wrongful death and negligence suits in a short window of time, short period of time.
mhm.
So it goes beyond a single person here. It's really important to remember that there were federal citations that were there, and then there's the administration's handling of it. The son stated that he was told by
Yes.
the administration that his father, quote, went quickly and peacefully,
Yep.
and found out in court that that wasn't the case.
It No, was it in court or was it a reporter reached out
Oh,
to
you're right.
him?
It was from a reporter,
It
not in
was a
court.
reporter because
That's right. He found out from the
yes,
news. You're right. I
because
apologize. I
according to
was
the
wrong.
son, Manning said, "Your dad died in peace. Your dad
Yeah,
died peacefully." And it wasn't until after the fact that a reporter reached out with inquiry asking, "Do you know what went on?" that the son found out it was wanton neglect, clear
yeah.
cut and dry,
But
right?
because
So
this was all put
yes.
on Manning,
Yeah, yeah.
the system winds up off the hook.
It did, and so right, and so it's the easy story is, "Oh, it's one bad nurse," but that's
Right.
not really true, right? If we think about this ethically, the harder story is the staffing model failed. It was an unfamiliar temp agency nurse on the overnight,
Hmm.
allegedly onboarded with watch a video and figure it out by assistant director of nursing who then left the building.
Right.
It was an institutional pattern that you spoke to, correct?
Yes.
Cover the family angle. Oh, the son allegedly told her, well, your dad went quickly and peacefully, only learning the truth from a reporter. And the debate prompt, I think, is you can put 100% on Manning and let the system off the hook. But to your point, the
Yeah.
system failed, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, this organization was initially fined, what, $10,000?
Yeah.
And that was literally reduced to 6,500. And I don't
It was reduced
understand
by
that either.
35%. I don't know how that
Yeah.
happens.
I
I
don't know
don't
how
know
that
those
happens
ins
either,
and outs. Yeah, I
right?
don't know those
Yeah.
details, and I don't know the processes behind all of that. But it just, you got 2 years, two
Yep.
years for criminal death,
Yep.
2 years for willfully not doing your job
Yep.
and causing harm which led to death.
So, Mike, is 2 years too little, too much, not enough?
Yeah, I think it's not enough.
Okay, not enough.
Yeah,
But
I think 2 years is not enough, and I think honestly, indefinite suspension is
yeah.
not a strong enough statement.
Yep. Yep.
Indefinite suspension, man, come on.
And where does in any one of our scope of practice, I was told it wasn't my job. Does that where's the weight? Where's the mitigating weight of that sentence fall on this?
Yeah, I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's never if you work in healthcare, I don't care if you don't even work in
Yeah,
healthcare. We have responsibilities as humans. We have moral responsibilities. We are never to say that's not my responsibility. That's not my job, especially when somebody's life is on the line. We all have a responsibility
yeah.
to take care of each other.
The issues were the system, the administrator, the Manning, the CNA, the everything, the court. In my opinion, here,
Yep.
I understand a little bit about how courts work, and I understand a little bit about we want to get some form of justice. But then I'll go back to the Alford plea.
Yep.
And if even the defendant thinks they have enough to convict you, wow.
Did Pete get justice?
I don't think so. I don't feel like
That's
he
a
did.
question. That's a question. And we don't, we don't know where this will
Yeah.
go out with the family, because interestingly enough, the son actually sued the institution,
Mm-hmm.
and it went to court and was dismissed because the son had signed I'm not going to take you to court piece of paper that whatever happens, we agree to go to
Arbitration.
arbitration.
Right.
Okay. So
And so
where's
it
the
was dismissed
justice?
to arbitration. Yeah.
Yep. Where's the justice in arbitration? So we don't really know where that is. You know, I'm gonna close this out like this, because I think this is important, if I may, Mike.
Sure.
You know, Pete needed one thing that night. He needed one thing for a person in the room to turn on the suction machine that was already there.
Right.
Right. And I think everything else that we talked about tonight, scope, systems, arbitration, Alford, please, it's really just the long answer to why that didn't, what happened and what didn't happen in this case.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to come back to this in another episode, because there's more to this that we can still talk about. So with that,
yeah.
Mike, everybody, thank you so much, and join us next time on Let's Get Ethical.